You are now in the Reality Capture Network.
Welcome to the Reality Capture Podcast. And today we have another guest with us in the land surveying world. We're going to welcome Jocelyn. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So today we are going to be focusing a bit on the land surveying industry. We're going to get into talking about some new technologies and maybe a specific focus on UAVs and drones. But let's start out with introducing you. We like to let people kind of give us a little story so that the listeners and people watching can get to know a little bit about you. Where are you from and how did you get into the industry you're in?
Sure. So I've been in California my whole life, mainly Central California. I actually started in architecture. I took some architecture classes in community college. I was working for a local designer in the early 2000s, and I loved it. But then during, the boom before the crash, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were doing a lot of apartments, and I couldn't just keep changing the elevations every day, and just, using the same floor plans over and over again. So I decided to make a change. I had taken AutoCAD classes in high school and then in college. Had used AutoCAD daily for years, and so I just thought, I'll work anywhere that wants to use AutoCAD. And I actually landed in the assessor's office at one of our local counties, drafting cadastral maps.
Mm-hmm.
So APN maps, tracking property, that sort of thing. Again, kind of like land surveying, there's just not a whole lot of people doing that. There's a couple positions in each county in the assessor's office. So kind of a unique position. Learned a whole lot about property law, boundaries, so the land surveying basics, really.
Yeah.
And then eventually transferred over to my local county, worked there for quite a few years. And, that's really what started my love for land surveying.
Okay.
And then 5 years ago, I joined QK, had an amazing set of mentors that really helped me grow and develop and train me up in my weaker areas. And it's been great.
Yeah. And where, for those who don't know your company, what all does QK do and what's your geographic area you guys cover?
Right. So QK, we have offices from the north in Merced all the way down to Bakersfield. So mainly Central California, but from Merced, we can branch out into parts of Northern California. From Bakersfield, we can, branch out further south.
Yeah.
So it makes it easier to reach most parts of California.
Yeah.
And we do everything from biology, construction monitoring, planning, land surveying, civil engineering. Basically, we can take a project start to finish as much as possible.
Awesome. So maybe we can get into what your specific role is now and kind of some of your personal focus.
Yeah. I am an associate surveyor in our Visalia office. I was hoping to say that I took the state exam in April and passed, but that's been canceled.
Yeah.
So planning to sit in October now.
Okay.
So eventually my role will be, land surveyor for our Visalia office.
Okay.
Right now I'm working with the licensed land surveyors in our other offices to cover our Visalia and Porterville area. But that's my main focus. All our land surveyors do quite a bit of project management too. And then specifically our UAV program has been a big part of the last few years at QK.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely interested to jump in and talk a little bit about when you guys got into new technology, kind of hearing what the current stage is. Are you guys still in the, exploring, trialing stage? Are you fully utilizing it in different jobs? Maybe we could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I don't think the exploring stage ever ends.
Ever ends. Yeah, nope.
not with the new
Good
technology.
answer.
Yeah. We started back in, sorry, I'm probably getting some background noise here.
Totally fine.
We started researching in mid to maybe early 16, right before, Part 107 came out. But we really focused on how we could use the technology first. We didn't focus on getting pilots on staff, training pilots necessarily. Right away, we got a contract pilot. And our main focus for probably the first year to year and a half was really just how can we use the data? How can we control it? What is our target layout going to look like for different types of jobs? How do we get the best vertical accuracy possible? What does that look like as far as sensor? What sensor are we going to choose for which certain jobs? And, just a lot of R&D on how to use the data appropriately and make sure we're getting the best from it. Luckily, our senior management team was very quick to adopt and want to push the technology forward, want to see it incorporated into our construction management, our biology practice. And then it was just finding the right staff to help move that forward. I don't think any of us thought that, I'm going to, use a UAV in my job. If you would have told me that 5 years ago, I would have laughed. Wasn't something I ever intended to get into. And I don't think most people, had that goal 5 years ago. Not in a land surveying company, at least. So it's been a fun journey, a big learning curve for sure.
Maybe we could even talk a little bit about survey industry in general. We'll get back to the UAV part, but part of what you're talking about is your management being excited to adopt new technology. I also came from a land survey background and working in a couple firms and just understanding the survey industry in a whole. A lot of people don't even know what surveyors really do. A lot of people have some stereotypical thoughts of surveyors being kind of sticking to old ways. When we think about the new technology, there's a couple other topics that come up, like, do licensed land surveyors have to be the people doing UAV type work or laser scanning work or anything that, where's that line drawn? And I think sometimes the difficulty is there's so many survey firms that have been really slow to adoption, kind of almost forcing other people to get into it because they know they want the technology. And it seems like the survey industry, when we look at how many new faces are coming up in survey versus how many are retiring off, I think across most of the states, that's even a statistic that's it almost looks like it's going down. What do you think about some of that, like the industry in whole?
I'm hoping the new technology and the younger generation seeing us adopt new technologies is going to encourage more people to get involved. Knowing that, hey, I can use a drone might be appealing to some of the younger generation coming up, and it might make it more appealing. At the same time, I mean, it's definitely a disruptive technology. It's disruptive in a good way, but like you said, getting people to accept it and not feel like it's taking work away from our field guys. It's our senior management really pushed, and this is another tool for our surveyors. It's not ever going to come close to replacing our surveyors. It is best in their hands as opposed to somebody unlicensed or that just knows how to fly. Right? It's a different way of looking at it. But the numbers as far as new surveyors coming on board, going through college, that sort of thing. It's scary that the retirement rate is much higher than the graduation rate. And then the testing rate's even lower than that. So I've seen a lot of, again, the younger generation, the newer surveyors, getting very active on LinkedIn, on Instagram even, just sharing what they're doing, sharing cool pictures from the day.
Yeah.
I think little bits like that will help get another generation interested.
Yep.
And the more we just get out there and explain what we're doing and share our passion, I think the better it's going to get.
Yeah.
Land surveyors are kind of a quiet, reclusive bunch.
Yep. But very, very important. And, we've seen, issues where a lot of people don't even know what survey is. They don't know why they would need it. And then you have people selling new technology like drones. Like, sometimes they don't even educate on why you might need ground control or what, how important that might be to your accuracy. So some people go out and drive over to Best Buy and buy a $900 drone and think they can map this big project. And they're like, yeah, they said we can do it. You press a button, it spits out data. But then you run into issues finding out, your data's like, it's all curving and the elevations are off because, you didn't even know that you needed survey. And that's really, we've seen that with multiple technologies, with laser scanning data, with drones, any of those technologies. There are ways to use them in small amounts without survey control, completely fine. But there's a lot of times that it's one of the most important aspects of a project.
Right. We've seen a lot of the same things you're mentioning too. And even I get a little frustrated with some of the software companies that don't mention like, hey, this is covered by the PLS Act. What this map you're creating, these points you're exporting, contour lines, that sort of thing. Like, they don't say that this action our software is allowing you to do is protected in a way by the PLS Act. Only certain engineers and land surveyors are able to deliver this type of product. On the same time, the same coin, if you will, it's marketing. They want to sell their product, so it doesn't benefit them to educate people in that way.
Yeah.
But I think that's where the land surveyors come in, and we need to be adopting it so that people can use that technology and it's available to them, but to providing that education of, hey, it's best in our hands and this is why.
Yeah.
And showing just, how getting a vertical datum wrong can drastically alter a project, not always for the better.
Yeah, and I do like you mentioned, you guys did trialing beforehand. We've also seen a lot of firms, even survey firms, that maybe jumped into a technology too quick. And yes, so many of the hardware software people are just pushing sales. They don't even educate you on the fact that, I'll take laser scanning. That's a big focus for ours. If you take laser scanning and you do a 2-mile long roadway, they don't educate you that you need survey control integrated there. They're like the scan will tie it all together by itself, or even if you use targets, it'll tie it together. No matter what your practice is in how you control scans, if you don't end up integrating some control, you're gonna be off. And the fact that most people don't even know that is it's very scary and it's difficult. And you see so many projects go bad, and then it feeds back to some of the initial issue of a client tries a new technology or a process once. They accidentally did it wrong because they didn't know, and now they had a bad experience and don't trust the technology, when it really comes down to making sure that if you're going to provide it, you trial, you go through a workflow, you understand how to control it. And that's one of our goals, even with this podcast, is educating people on when is that important? When is it not important? I think there's certain levels of the technology that, certain people can do, and you don't need survey control. If you're going to, map a little stockpile to get a rough volume, if you're going to do big sites, you still really need it. If you're going to laser scan a small interior building space like a house, you can register that properly without survey control. But that's not the majority of the use cases for the technology either.
Right. That's such a small amount of, I haven't seen one job come through our office where I thought, we could have done this without survey control. I'm not saying they're not out there, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not been the norm for sure.
Yeah.
And we actually had a large project, a drainage study that we were working with a client, and they had access to drones. They had actually flown other jobs and didn't like the results.
Mm-hmm.
And that was within their internal staff.
Yeah.
We came in and said, we're going to help you with this drainage study. And hey, we want to fly it. And they're like, it didn't work so good. We tried it on other jobs. And we reassured them, like, these are the ways we're going to control it. This is how we're going to make sure it works. And it was kind of like okay, we'll see. They were still skeptical.
Yeah.
And then at the end, when we were finally able to deliver the product, we had a civil engineer actually tell us that we changed his mind as it relates to UAV and accuracy. And I think everybody would agree it's really hard to change a civil engineer's mind.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's awesome.
It was a really awesome moment. And it just kind of, it bolstered or justified, I guess, would be a better word, for how much time we spent in the beginning focusing on control, focusing on choosing the right sensor, limiting when we'd fly and under what conditions, just to make sure we could control the data as much as possible.
Yeah.
A lot of people have used that term, like, crap in, you get crap out, right? Like, if you don't have good images, you're never going to get a good 3D model.
Yeah.
So it definitely reaffirmed that we had done it the right way, and how critical that control is. I know you mentioned target layout and ground control being critical for a product, or a good project. But we've actually seen that some of our surveyors out there setting the control need to have that understanding of what makes good ground control. Sometimes they get out on site and there's an unexpected ponding basin or, water in different locations than we were looking at when we were planning our target layout in Google Earth or something. Mm-hmm. And so they need to be able to either decide when it's appropriate to call the land surveyor in charge and say, hey, I need to change this target layout. Where should I put it instead? Or whether they can just proceed. So it's not just the land surveyor understanding target control, it's also our field crews.
Yeah.
And then the people using that data to post-process.
Yeah, I think that's that's a good point. And I think that comes down to really the implementation of any new technology in any business. The best approach is to educate the whole company, right. buy off from the type to move forward with pursuing it. The understanding from the people that really know what deliverable you want to try to get out of it, and then educating the people in the field so they can make those changes or adjustments if needed. Right. And, everybody becomes a voice for the company. Everybody becomes talking points. If you're out on site and somebody asks you about, can you guys do this thing? It's good to have that understanding of, oh yeah, we could do that with a UAV because we can map versus, right. only select people know the technology. Because, sometimes once you bring all of that thought process together, that's when you come up with ideas nobody really thought of, because maybe the guy in the field has a different perspective than the guy in the office who knows the details of the technology.
Yeah, I had told quite a few people on our staff, and I think I've said it we do lunch and learns to, show the rest of our staff what we're doing with the technology and how it's been incorporated in different areas. And I keep saying, like, yes, I know drones. I know how to, fly a project. I know how to set it up correctly. But I need you guys to come to us with ideas of how to use it, because there's just no way I can think of every possible way we could.
Yeah,
it's such a valuable tool that we need those other people thinking of ideas on how it can make their work easier and how it can complement their deliverables.
Yeah. So, and you don't have to get too detailed here, don't want to give away any special secrets or anything, but what are some, I'm sure at this point you guys have played with it long enough. You're finding different things to trial or different use cases or projects. What are some of the successful ways that you're currently implementing it on jobs and utilizing it And or are there any that you've maybe tried that you're like, that's not quite a good application for or something?
Yeah, we're using it a lot of this just to extract topo for land development projects.
Yep.
But we are flying every new survey job, even if it's just for a background image and we're not extracting any vertical data from it. That picture behind a lot line adjustment exhibit, so you can show fence lines or something like that. The picture speaks to our clients so much better than our planimetric topos do.
Yep.
So that's, I think, that one of the best scenarios, and it's so easy for those jobs because you're not setting a ton of ground control points.
Yeah.
We are still setting some, but not like we would on a job where we need vertical data.
Yeah.
I've seen it work wonderfully on a new subdivision, a subdivision that was being resurrected, if you will. It had gone dormant after the crash, and a new developer picked it up. They wanted to figure out where they needed retaining walls between lots because the whole site was terrace.
Yeah.
So we flew it and had, I think, within 24 hours, a 3D model for them to start planning on where these retaining walls needed to go so they can maximize their lot sizes.
Yeah.
And again, it really depends on site conditions. That was all dirt.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be able to do the same thing if there was vegetation over the whole site.
Yeah.
So there's understanding when a UAV is appropriate and when it's not.
Yeah.
Even if you're trying to get the same deliverable, site conditions might make it unflyable.
Yeah.
So having that understanding has been critical for good results too.
Yep.
We've done a couple drainage studies lately on pretty large scale. That has been, I think, saved a lot of field time. I'm also seeing good feedback from our crews, not having to go out in the road to collect striping information. Just being able to fly that. They're still out on the road to, get our boundary control. They're still dipping the manholes. You're never going to get away from that. But keeping them out of the road, and they don't have to go and get that, turn arrow and that sort of stuff. It's helped a lot.
Yeah, that's one of the, honestly, when I'm teaching someone about laser scanning for the first time, that's one of the examples I use every single time when I talk about safety. I'm like, we talk about industrial sites and we talk about limiting exposure, but I always bring up, or you think about surveying and guys out in the middle of the road taking shots, whether it's drone or laser scanning, being able to find dangerous scenarios or, risky intersections that it's really hard to shut down, or it's going to take a long time to get permits, standing on the sidewalk and doing laser scanning to capture that data, or doing drone flights. There's so many improvements from new technology on top of the beautiful, innovative data, the picture behind your old kind of ugly 2D drawing. Oops. The data is so visually appealing. People that don't know how to read drawings can look at a point cloud or a picture and know what they're looking at. You can still have the other data there for the people who need the measurements, and but then the safety aspect, the training material you can create, the marketing material you get. I mean, there's 7 use cases for every technical project you work on. And of course, even on the survey side, when we've used scanning or drones on some detailed sites, you can always go in and draft some new data or extract some points from the point cloud versus having to drive back because you're out there topoing and you forgot to shoot the corner of this box, or you get so much incidental data. Right.
There's a perfect example of that, not having to go back out. We had flown a well site, and the pipe networks on those sites are so complex, and our survey crews need to have a good understanding of what all the pieces are so they can note it in our data collectors correctly. But then having the images where somebody says, no, I think that's a whatever type of joint or valve, and our crews had labeled it as something different. We didn't have to go back out to verify because we had the images. We could pull it up, and it was just clear as day. What type of valve it was. So not having to go back out. Also, we've kind of made it practice that we always control and fly a little bit of extra area around the project when we're able. Sometimes, we don't want to get onto a neighbor's property or something.
Yep.
But that has saved us so many repeat visits to the site, because it's like, oh, I wish we would have just had 10 more feet. And we can go back and say, oh, look, we do.
Yeah.
We can just extract that.
Yeah. The extra data out of the new ways to capture is awesome. What about maybe a couple challenges that come to the top of your head with implementing UAV processes, anywhere from challenges with the hardware and the capturing to processing time to computers to data? What are some things that pop up?
Data size and processing time has definitely been some of our biggest challenges. But right out of the gate, our biggest hurdle, I think, as a company was to make our point clouds simple enough for the engineers to use and not be just totally bogged down with the size of these point clouds. So finding software that would let us extract only the features we needed to and take that into CAD, have it look like one of our traditional topos that we've been producing for years. So that way it wasn't a huge shock to the system of now I have to relearn how to draft because it's a UAV topo.
Yeah.
We didn't want to have that distinction. We just wanted the engineers to see good data, good survey data, whether it came from a UAV or a traditional field crew. So spending the time to make sure that workflow was seamless took a lot of time and a lot of trial and error, figuring out the right pieces to make it work. And then from a planning side, looking at a 4,000 acre site and figuring out how do I set control to allow us to break it into pieces to post-process, but then be able to seamlessly put it all back together at the end. That workflow definitely pushed our limits.
Yes. Yeah. I think data size and processing and these are all the same challenges I think everybody faces.
Right.
I do want to ask one more before I forget it. So when you're also talking about taking the data and creating a usable drawing or, simplifying it back to what you needed, I'm sure that journey has been changing over time, researching new softwares, figuring out processes. Just out of curiosity, have you gotten it to the point that you guys have quite a few people who can actually take that data and do it? Or do you kind of have like a focused team who creates those and then gives them out to people? Or what's your...
Right. Yeah, we definitely have a focused team. At first, we were trying to make that focus team also our field crews, because our field crews are our pilot.
Yeah.
Most of the time, we have some biologists and different staff that's maybe not on a field crew all the time. But our goal was for the field staff to go out and set control, fly the mission, bring it back, post-process, draft it, and then hand it off to the engineers. But we were learning real fast that we can't have them in the office during our busy season because they're needed in the field. Yeah. So we've kind of revised, and our field staff, some of our field staff is trained to do the post-processing and feature extraction. And then we have some drafters that are used to drafting topos, and so they do the feature extraction. It's just that field experience of understanding what you would have collected in the field translates so nicely into our feature extraction software. Yeah. That, if you were to hand it off to somebody that's never been in the field before, they struggle with, where would a survey crew take this shot? Yeah. Where would they mark edge of pavement? Where would, it's a different understanding. Yeah. Just on the drafting side.
I think almost even more so because you have more data. Like, if you've been a drafter who's been so used to conventional survey of, I have these 3 points labeled this and that's the line. Now you have all this data and you're like, wait, where's my simple points to just connect? Now I have to actually get in and choose the exact spot that I'm drafting from. And that's a very different approach.
It makes sense for our field guys to understand it great. But it's just keeping them in the office to do that drafting isn't always the best case scenario,
Yeah. Yeah.
During slow season, so it's wonderful to have, or, rainy days when they get rained out.
Yeah, definitely.
They're still able to be utilized in the office and do that sort of drafting task, and keep our projects moving forward.
Yeah.
Even though they can't be out in the field.
That's awesome. Have you guys found any trialing out any UAV services apart from kind of integrating for survey mapping, like doing stockpile analysis or some type of visual inspection or anything like that, or is it mostly survey service integration?
It's mostly survey service integrated, and I think that's been beneficial because we don't have. We originally talked about maybe sending our data off and giving them our ground control and having somebody else post process it or do feature extraction. But our surveyors, since it's their stamp going on the project, they want to have it in their hands. They want to oversee the data.
Yeah.
It's just it makes QA/QC easier because you don't have to figure out what steps it went through.
Yep.
Most of the time, other than this working from home scenario, our drafters are very close to our licensed surveyors, so they can walk in if they have a question and say, "Hey, come look at this with me. I'm seeing something weird."
Yeah.
You can't beat that interaction and that level of comfort when it's time for them to actually put their stamp on it.
Yeah. No, I agree. What about I know we've talked a lot about UAV. I'm not actually even sure what else technology wise you guys might integrate with, or have you gotten into any laser scanning or looking at like virtual reality with models or anything? Or
we haven't touched virtual reality yet. We do have scanning capabilities on some of our total stations.
Okay.
And I think as our staff has gotten a higher level of comfort with the point clouds from our UAV work, we're going to see more of that.
Yeah.
At first, I think the point clouds were overwhelming and intimidating. I know that's how I felt when I first started looking at our first few UAV flights.
Yep.
So I see us branching out into the scanning area next. Virtual reality looks amazing. There's so many times where it's like, man, I wish I could just deliver this whole site to the client. And this kind of going back and touching on that file side, there's just some limitations. Even if we can deliver it to them, it doesn't mean our clients can use it.
Yep.
So finding services or, as technology, I think, develops for sharing that type of stuff, it's going to get better. I picture more people being open to it and using it. Right now, it's kind of like we show our clients what we could do with it. And then it's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. But them using it as another step.
Yeah. I think overall, as far as all these new technologies go, I think we're still, even though they've been around for a while now, I think we're still at the beginning. I think there's so much room for further integration in so many industries. We've been doing laser scanning for a long time now, even through several companies. And it's still to the point that if you randomly pick up the phone and call a survey company or an engineer or an architect, like
they may or may not do it.
75% of the time, they'll say like, we're definitely not using that yet. Maybe half of them have heard of laser scanning, but they don't know the details. They don't know how it works. They don't know the data. But once you start integrating these technologies, just like you guys have found with UAV, once you start integrating laser scanning or UAV, or you find that, oh man, the benefits that come from it, the deliverables that come from it, the time savings, there's such huge improvement. It's that first hurdle, I think, of educating the client why the new technology works or is beneficial, trying it out for the first time, and then they get sold and that's almost all they want because it's so useful. So yeah, I think that's a fun hurdle to get over, though, is the education part.
Yeah, we've actually had some clients who think they want a UAV point cloud, for example, and I don't want to say we've talked them out of it, but educating them on why it would be better for a laser scanner or LiDAR or something else. One of them was a complicated dam face that was mostly in shadow, just based off its natural orientation. There was some vegetation, tall trees in front of portions of it that, even if we were to do obliques with a UAV, I doubt it would have worked just because of the shadows.
Yeah.
And so explaining, shadows seem like so silly. Well, why is that a problem? But explaining to your client, like, we're not going to get good data in those dark spots, and why a different technology would be better. Maybe not quite as cheap as they were originally hoping for, but if the data is what they're concerned with, educating them on how we can get there.
Yeah, that's another part of the education we've seen be, I think, a challenge is, this even goes back to the companies that are trying to just really push sales on like a UAV and not explain in depth what you can do with it. A lot of people find, they'll get, for example, they'll have a project they need mapped. They'll ask for 3 quotes from 3 different companies. And what do they want to do? They want to go with the cheapest one. They may not know the difference between who had what gear and why and who suggested what method.
Right.
So even just that education piece of like, there are 10 different types of technologies. You can use a tow station. You could use an aerial LiDAR. You could use aerial UAV. You could use a laser scanner. But what's the difference and why would you use them? Because we've had people ask that. They're like, why didn't you use this mobile type of data collection? Because, we heard somebody say it's way faster. And you're like, well, you wanted a really high accurate, data set because you're prefabricating steel. So you don't want the lesser accuracy. So there's so much education, I think, that needs to go into these new technologies. It's kind of hard to do though, because there's not a lot of areas, I think, to go find that information.
There's not, and I think that's something we struggle with, because there's so many times where we want to share with other companies and other firms, like, how are we doing this? Let's work through it together. But then there's that guarded aspect of, we've put so much time into the R&D. We're playing a little close to the vest. I think as time goes on, more and more people are going to be willing to share. And even something as simple as this podcast is so great just to hear that other people have struggled with the same things as you're sharing, and like, you can get through it, and there are ways. Because 4 years ago that wasn't the case. It was just kind of the Wild West, and you're out on your own trying to figure it out.
And our goal with this podcast, with expanding and educating new clients, we get that question as well about, well, why are you doing these podcasts and like giving away your secrets and, telling other people there's so much laser scanning work instead of just getting it yourselves? And the reason is we have found way more success in collaborating and building relationships and than trying to just do everything ourselves. And because we push our presence online so much, we get projects all over the country. And it would be way better for us to build out this network, find people who, we can build relationships with and push the industry ahead by, if we get a project on the East Coast, instead of us taking the time to pack up and travel over and do scanning and do UAV and come back, and, we can provide them with the portion of collection work, and we can help support the field work. And now we can just all get projects done faster. So we really are just trying to continue educating and, provide a chance for other people to talk about what they're doing, where they're at, and hope to point business to kind of everybody that's involved.
Yeah. I think that's a great approach. And the more clients that realize that it's accessible to them, these technologies are out there, and it's not only somebody, on the East Coast that's doing it. It's available everywhere. The more they'll start asking for it.
Yeah. And that's one of the issues we've seen both ways. We have seen scanning companies come from across the country to scan a project down the street from us and vice versa. We, when we travel to the East Coast to do a job, I have so many relationships with other scanning companies. I know somebody within driving distance, and so the fact that clients don't know that is almost a holding a limitation on the adoption of the technology, because it's a lot more involved to try to find someone that you think is the only person on the other side of the country. And, how much value does it need to bring to the project to justify
before they even reach out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we're excited to continue just kind of building out that network.
Yeah.
So you guys have been staying busy. Obviously, this is a unique time.
Yes.
I think that we are all in. I'd love to even hear, has the technology, is there any way that it specifically has benefited your guys' projects or clients? I know that some of ours, like looking at laser scanning or virtual documentation, across even just from other companies, we've heard so many more requests for virtual data because people can't travel to job sites. They need more information.
Right.
Is there anything that you guys have uniquely kind of seen, some of the technology benefit or, be more utilized or something?
Yeah, I think most of the engineers would do a job site visit at the beginning of a project. And it could have been a group of, maybe 3 drafting staff and a senior engineer and, maybe a client representative out on site too. And so since we are flying all our new jobs, we've seen that number go down a little bit. And maybe it's, just a senior engineer that wants to go out and identify some pain points or some areas of concern. But we don't need 5 people on staff to all be on the same page. That imagery and the highly detailed topo tells the story. And they don't have to go out in the field to see that, there's a area of bad sidewalk or a DI that needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
So we haven't seen, I wouldn't say that we've seen more requests coming in.
Sure.
But the feedback from our engineering team has been that, they don't feel like they had to go out and look at something on site because the data is so good and it's already there.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. And as far as the UAV, I know that's what we've spent a lot of time talking about, a big focus for you guys. Have you utilized both aerial LiDAR and photogrammetry type, or what's your kind of split?
We haven't used aerial LiDAR yet.
Okay.
I think, I feel like we're close.
Yep.
There's definitely been some jobs where it was the best way forward. And maybe the client just wasn't ready to take that step yet.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's where the next step's going to be for us.
Yeah.
I'm excited, a little worried about the data size for some of these jobs, but it's going to be another fun learning curve.
Yes. Always learning curves to get through.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I'll have to ask, with the current technology that you're using, this is kind of if you could fix something that's an issue, or you could kind of think ahead a little bit to the future. Like if you look 5 years down the road and a certain process of what you guys do could be automated or simplified, or what's something you could see helping, integrate more into your work?
Right. A few companies have gotten close. I'll use Pix4D for example. They have flight software. They have post-processing. Now they've come out with Pix4D Survey for feature extraction. That type of we're not using all 3 of those, unfortunately, because there's just a few little things, quirky things in each one that we want to have different control. So we might be using a DJI product for flight, Pix4D for post-processing, and then Virtual Surveyor for feature extraction. But there's not one that's, takes you start to finish, and then even into a CAD environment.
Yeah.
I think that would be huge to have that start to finish workflow. And maybe it works for some other companies. It just hasn't provided the level we want yet.
Yeah.
But then also, like we touched on earlier, the sharing capabilities. Okay, you have this amazing point cloud. Now, how do I share it and make it usable for the client?
Yeah.
Even if we're just taking a project in-house for topo and engineering design, it's nice to be able to give the client like, hey, look at this pre-construction photo.
Yeah.
And now we can move into construction management, and you can get monthly updates. We can fly it for you. Turning that into something they can use, and support their whole project rather than just data collection at the start.
Yeah.
But seeing that all wrapped up into one, which, I mean, it's a pipe dream, I think. But
yep. Probably, but
it would be nice to have, not have to document those little quirks of, oh, if you're using this flight software, you need to change these few little settings because it doesn't work like this other flight software that's out there.
Yeah. Well, and I just like asking and getting into challenges and ideas because, so many of the hardware and software companies follow our podcast, follow our network, and we're like, look at, every single person's talking about this data size or this issue with software, or so continuing to just push feedback to people. I think it's just nice to jump into that a little bit. So thank you for sharing.
No problem.
Let's see. I think I've mostly hit on most of the questions I had. Do you have any other thoughts or topics that you'd like to touch on?
Just going back to, that next generation of surveyors, I think, just continuing to get out there, share the little things, share the silly moments on a job site, share something cool you see. And then, of course, I think sharing these amazing point clouds we're getting from UAV data or LiDAR data or whatever it is, just continuing to share and just encouraging people to maybe not protect that so much and be vocal about why you're proud of a project. And even if it seems like, oh, nobody cares and nobody knows what we do, share it anyway.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way people are the younger generation is gonna start understanding why we do what we do and how it helps.
Yeah, no, I agree. And one new focus that we recently launched is actually helping companies with content creation and marketing strategies. And, it's, when we started our company, we're very service focused. And of course, we're still doing that and helping clients. But finding that one of our strengths is really like building awareness and marketing and building networks. Right. We've now put a little bit of a shift to try to use that strength that we have to help other companies, because I think especially in the AEC industry, in architects and surveyors, and a lot of them don't even have a current website. They don't. They definitely aren't active on social media. Some are, but I think a majority are very lacking there. And I think that's an area that if you take the time to create creative material showing footage of drone flights and laser scanners and point clouds, and then you bring those into your marketing strategy and you're putting it on your website and you're sending requests out to newer generation people that are in school for engineering and stuff. I think that's a big mix that really could help build awareness and bring potential hires to firms. I think it's it's one of those long-term investments, if you will. You're not going to see a turnaround within the next year by doing that type of stuff, but long term, if you get in front of the kids that are in high school right now, in 8 years, maybe we see a higher licensed surveyor or geomatics degree turnout. It's the little, and it's just by getting out there now, talking to the geometry classes, doing the little things that just, hey, what is a land surveyor? How do we support civil engineers? What does that team look like, and why is it appealing? I mean, right now we're the essential workers. We're part of that group. We're still, a lot of us are working from home. But it's nice to have an income and have a job during this time. And so, showing them that it's exciting and where are still adopting new technology, and it's not just an ancient profession that's being phased out. I think it's going to be a long road to get the numbers up, but if we all keep doing little bits, it'll make a difference. I agree. Well, thank you again for joining us today. I think it was a great conversation. I think it's going to be valuable to people that are looking into UAV, and we'll definitely make sure we link your company in the post and to the site so people can find you. And we'll hope to stay connected, and maybe we'll find a chance to collaborate with you as well. I know we have work going on out in California, so we always enjoy finding like-minded people, ahead of the curve, working on technology to partner with. So
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Alrighty. Thank you. We'll see you again soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Reality Capture Network, bringing the future to you.